Hello, Global Innovation Forum. My name is Morten Bonde. I'm a senior art director and I work for the LEGO Group.
Hey! 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 Hey!
For many years, I've been the creative lead on the LEGO City project, and I've created tons of TV commercials and campaigns together with my awesome colleagues. But today, I'm not gonna talk too much about LEGO City and LEGO City heroes. I'm gonna share a story with you. A story about how imagination and creativity can be tools to rebuild your life. All my life, I've been a storyteller. And let me share a little story with you. One day in 2002, I was diagnosed with an eye disease that will slowly make me go blind. I just started my career in the advertising industry, and the diagnosis was a shock. I couldn't accept that I would become blind. So I continued my life and my career as if nothing had happened. For the next 7 years, I worked at various agencies and developed campaigns for cars, food, cosmetics industry, the education sector, and much more. In 2009, I got my dream job at the LEGO agency. I was quickly promoted to senior art director, and I worked primarily on the LEGO City project. Mr. City, I was often called. Through the years, I lost more and more sight, but I didn't really share this with many, because I was worried and concerned about what that would mean for my life and my career. But becoming blind wasn't really my biggest problem.
Oh, I have to make this presentation for Monday. How do I get home? I can't do that. Where will it end? What should I make for dinner tomorrow? Why can't I see like the others? I have to pick up the kids. My boss is such an ass. Why don't I have hair?
In my thoughts, I kept repeating all the things that I couldn't do and how dark my future would become. In 2012, problems began to arise in everyday life
I developed stress and spent enormous energy keeping track of all my tasks as a creative lead. This is how some years went by until around 2016, where I completely broke down from stress and depression. I couldn't understand what was going on until one day in 2016, when the ophthalmologist could tell me that I was legally blind. In December 16, I had a very strange and life-changing experience. I was sitting at the local job center discussing how my life with blindness could continue, and something happened. We were sitting around the table, and I remember having a deep feeling of hopelessness and powerlessness. Everything that I thought was me was gone. I was legally blind, and I was facing a future in darkness. Of what use could I be to anyone? But right there, in that room, on that cold December day, I finally surrendered. And it felt like all my identities died in one big collapse. And you know what? It was such a relief. And while people around me spoke about clauses and procedures, their voices slowly faded away. And there, in the silence, I heard a new, very strong voice in my head. What do you want out of life, Morten? It was so powerful. After this experience, I asked myself these questions. If I can't change the blindness, can I somehow change my perspective on becoming blind? Can I tell myself a new story about it? Can I use my creativity and imagination to rebuild myself, to become a person who can see possibilities in life rather than limitations? They were life-changing questions. But I couldn't change. I kept repeating the same limiting stories over and over again in the mind.
I can't accomplish anything.
I'm going to be blind.
I'm a fraud.
Why is it so difficult to change your thoughts and habits? I started meditating a lot and researching the human mind. Religion, philosophy, biology, physics, and the things I learned just totally blew my mind. The first life-changing learning was this. We have a subconscious mind, and it almost worked like a computer. It has tons of programs, and they run automatically without us even being aware of it. Most of our life, we are run by the programs in the subconscious, the autopilot. Most of our life, we are like a jukebox playing the same old songs again and again. And rarely are we present in this moment, which is the only time we can make conscious decisions that can change our lives for the better. And how do we program the subconscious mind? Through repetition. When we repeat something over and over again, we create habits, and they are like programs on a hard drive. This leads to my learning number 2. We become what we think and focus on. Let me repeat that. We become what we think and focus on. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius said it like this: happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly. Henry Ford said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're probably right." The Buddha said, "We are shaped by our thoughts. We become what we think." A lot of our thoughts are automatically negative, and if we think these limiting thoughts over and over again, we program ourselves with limitations.
I'm nervous. I'm in doubt.
That is what I did for so many years, and I became the thoughts that I was constantly thinking.
So, in the summer of 17, I started an experiment. I wanted to see if I could teach myself to think new thoughts about my situation. I gave myself 4 challenges in 4 months to reprogram my subconscious mind to see possibilities in life rather than limitations. And the first challenge was stop, swap thought. For 30 days, I would challenge my inner negative thought machine. And every time I noticed that my inner voice would blame something or think negatively on something, I would have 5 seconds to change to a positive, conscious thought. Now, this is what I call mindfulness in action. Observe, accept, change. I could no longer drive my car. I lost that ability in 16. So now I had to go to work by bus. And a trip that normally took half an hour now took 1.5 hours. I hated that bus. I'd lost my freedom. But one day, when I was waiting for the bus in the pouring rain, the inner voice started complaining again. Shitty eyes, shitty bus, always late, shitty waiting in the Oh, stop, swap thought. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I was standing there in the pouring rain with my raincoat pulled all the way up to my neck. And suddenly, I remembered that last week my wife had bought this raincoat for me because she felt compassion for me standing there in the pouring rain. Suddenly, I felt enormous love and gratitude for my wife instead of anger and resentment towards rain and a bus that was late. And then I realized something else. I now had an extra 1.5 hours, 2 times every day, where I could listen to audiobooks and meditate in my own huge limousine. You know, the bus ride became my most precious time of the day. I had changed a situation that I had labeled as bad into something that now was bliss. But I didn't really change the situation. I only changed my perspective on the situation. I changed the story about the situation. I noticed something else, that I could change people around me with my stop, swap, thought game. One day when walking into a meeting room full of angry colleagues who were frustrated and angry about a campaign that had to be totally redone, I would think, stop, swap, thought. And I said, well, this is great. We love doing campaigns, and now we can do it all over again. Woo, woo, woo. That changed the mood in the room. My 30 days of stop, swap, thought game taught me that it is rarely the situation that we are in that is a problem, but our thoughts about the situation. We always have a choice. Whether something is good or bad is just a matter of perspective. And I got something else during those 30 days. I got a new inner voice.
That's how you do it, Morten. Way to go! You can do it It's so easy. Go for it. Go for it, tiger. You are the champion, my friend. And you keep on fighting to the end.
I must admit though that sometimes that new inner voice can be a little too much. My challenge number 2 was about challenging fear and worry. And skydiving was on a top 5 list of things that I promised never ever to do in my life. But I decided to do it anyway. And I wanted to notice how many times my inner voice would try to talk me out of jumping. And it did all the time. But I could use my stop, swap thought game to change my story and my self-talk about jumping. This challenge taught me that things that I fear and worry the most can turn out to be life's greatest moments. Challenge number 3 was about challenging feeling limited all the time. It felt uncomfortable when people noticed that I was visually impaired. So I decided to train feeling comfortable in the uncomfortable, and lying on the sidewalk in the middle of rush hour, counting to 30, while the inner voice would scream, "No!" was uncomfortable. But this challenge taught me that the only limitations that I will meet in life are those I create in the mind. They're not real.
Challenge number 4 was to share this experience with the world. I became a public speaker and I wrote the book Sentenced to Blindness, Now What? To share my journey from Hopelessness Street to Possibility Road. So I would never ever forget this experience. Now I've made it my mission to share with anyone who wants to listen that we all have much greater influence on our happiness than we actually think, and that we actually can rebuild ourselves in this world. The Lego group says that together we can rebuild the world, and I say that it all starts with you rebuilding yourself.
But hey, how can all this change that I'm becoming blind? Well, it can't. But I can decide to change my perspective on becoming blind. I can decide to change my story about it. I can decide to rebuild myself. You know, this whole experience has taught me one thing in particular, and that is that life is like a story. And we are the actors in that story. Most people remain actors in their own self-created dramas, but we have the ability to change roles in this play. I decided to change my role in my play. I decided to become the copywriter and the director of my own life. I changed my story from being about the almost blind man who couldn't see the light in life because of a future in darkness, to write the story about the almost blind man who decided to create his life, to rebuild it, and to be grateful for the huge gift that life is. You know, if we change the story that we keep repeating again and again in the mind, we change our lives. But isn't it ironic? I had to lose my sight to gain that insight. You know, before I leave you, I just want to recommend that you listen to my colleague at Lego House, Mike's wonderful presentation of Lego house, the home of the brick. So go check that out.